Hello to anyone out there listening, and welcome to My Autistic Life. I am Autumn, and thank you for joining me. Today I want to have a real honest chat about what it's like being autistic, homeschooling, and living in a tiny home, all at the same time. One of the biggest challenges I face is managing my energy. Being autistic means I already need more time to recover from daily sensory and social demands. But as a homeschooling parent in a tiny space, I don't really get that time. I'm the parent, teacher, cook, conflict manager, cleaner, you name it, because we don't have separate rooms to retreat to. There's no real way to step away and reset. This can lead to a sensory overload, just feeling completely drained. I try to build in quiet moments, but let's be real. When you're homeschooling in a small space, quiet isn't always an option. Kids naturally have a ton of energy, and when you're in a tiny home, there just isn't much space to run, jump, and play indoors. This is especially hard on sensory-seeking kids who need a lot of movement. And when my child doesn't get enough energy out, that affects me too, because then I'm dealing with more restlessness and frustration and sensory chaos in an already tight space. We rely on outdoor time as much as possible, but weather, exhaustion, and daily responsibilities don't always make that easy. Some days we're just stuck inside, and those are the hardest days. When you have a sensory seeking child who loves to move and get that energy out, when you live in a tiny space, it can be so much harder, not only on the adult, on myself, but on the child as well. It can be very challenging at times. This is a big one. This is especially huge for me. It's especially huge for my daughter who is autistic and my son who is autistic. Because we live in a tiny home, at the moment, he doesn't have his own room. He's still sharing a room with myself and my husband. So it makes it even harder because he doesn't have that space that he can go to, right, and feel like it's his own personal space. As an autistic person, I need alone time to regulate my emotions, process my thoughts, and just exist without external demands. But in a tiny home, there is no real personal space. There's nowhere to go to just be. Even my child struggles with this because they also need their own little world sometimes. When we're constantly in each other's space, emotions can run high. Small frustrations feel huge, just massively enormous, because there's no escape. For me, that means sensory overload happens faster and more often. I've learned that even though I can't physically get space, I have to create emotional or sensory space in other ways, like noise canceling earbuds, short breaks, going outside, or just taking deep breaths and reminding myself that this moment will pass. When you live in a small home, every sound, every smell, every movement is right there. It's all in your space. If my child is bouncing off the walls, literally, okay, literally, I feel every vibration. I hear every noise. If they're playing with a noisy toy, I can't just step into another room for relief. Cooking smells, loud conversations, overhead lights, background noise from videos or music, it all piles up. Sensory overload isn't just uncomfortable, it makes it hard to function. When I hit that point, homeschooling becomes 10 times harder because I need to be able to focus, to teach, to guide, and parent effectively. It's a constant balancing act of managing my child's needs while also trying to protect my own sensory limits. Homeschooling already requires a lot of planning and flexibility, but doing it all in a tiny space means I have to be even more organized. There's no dedicated schoolroom, no big bookshelves, no extra space for all the craft supplies and learning materials. That means constant cleaning, decluttering, reorganizing. That's all on top of teaching. And because I'm autistic, executive functioning challenges make this even harder. Planning lessons, keeping up with housework, managing emotions. It's overwhelming. Some days it feels impossible to keep up. And that's something I'm learning to give myself grace for, because I haven't always given myself that grace and that time and to pace myself. A lot of my life think that I have to get it all done in one day and then do it all over the next day. And then I wonder why when a week passes, I feel burnt out. I feel like I can't do it again. And that will last literally weeks. And then I get back on track and then I can do it again for a week. And it's just been this cycle, this running cycle of go, 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 and then burn yourself out. And I never understood why I lived that way. I never understood why I couldn't just function like other people function, to do the things that they do on a daily basis and consistently be able to do them every week, every month, every year. That has not been my life. There are a few things that have made tiny home homeschooling slightly easier for me as an autistic parent. Outdoor breaks are huge. Whenever possible, we go outside. Even if it's just standing on the porch in our mudroom for 5 minutes to breathe, that's what I have to do. That's what is needed to be done. I try to keep school materials simple. Less clutter means fewer distractions and less sensory overwhelm. However, because I homeschool, I end up picking up materials when I see them, and then I have an overload or excess of materials, and I'm going, oh my word, why do I do this? So then I have to declutter and bring materials that I'm not using at those moments down to our overflow shed. And yes, we have an overflow shed. It's minimalism in our tiny home. And then I try to keep everything else out of sight down in the other building. Some days we ditch the structured lessons because that's just needed. As an autistic parent, teaching my autistic child, there are days when structured learning is not required. We need those sensory seeking learning days, right? Where we can pull out the foam, pull out the slime, pull out Play-Doh, get our tools and cut and teach and learn in those other ways rather than just structured learning, because we don't always all learn well in a structured way. And then we learn through play and storytelling and hands-on activities. Noise canceling earbuds and calming background music help reduce auditory overload. I try to play soft music, classical music, hymns, anything that is more calming. If it is stimulating, it's stimulating in a way that is soothing. My final thoughts on my situation, how we live, because I'm autistic and I homeschool and we live in a tiny home. Those can all be big challenges. Those are really big challenges for me in my life. Homeschooling in a tiny home as an autistic person is hard. There are days when I feel like I just can't keep up, but there are also moments that make it all worth it. Watching my child learn, getting to be a part of his growth, and embracing a lifestyle that works for a family. Right now, this is our lifestyle. It has to work, right? We have to make it work. When it's not our lifestyle anymore, it's not our lifestyle anymore, but for now it is. And while it is our lifestyle, we will be grateful. We'll be thankful for it. I'm grateful. I'm thankful that I get to homeschool my son, that we have a home and we are taken care of. We do wait for a new path. Until that path arrives and we're able to go on a whole new path, this is what we have and this is what we will continue to be grateful for. I thank you for all joining me today and listening to my thoughts and the challenges that I go through being an autistic parent who homeschools and lives in a tiny home. They all three present challenges that I have to work through on a daily basis. And it will continue to be that way until, we are led to go in a different direction. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Combining them, it's a whole different level, let me tell you. Benny, no. Need more time to recover. My autistic life, and it's an autistic life for sure.